The first sound in the tundra morning is not birdsong, nor the rustle of trees, nor the hum of distant roads. It is silence so vast and heavy that it feels alive, pressing into the ears, swallowing every thought. And then, inside the felt walls of a reindeer hide tent, the silence is broken by the faintest sigh, the crackle of embers in the stove, as someone stirs, coaxing them back into flame. In this frozen world, at 60 degrees below zero, waking is never gentle. It is an act of will, an act of survival, a ritual that begins before the first light has even touched the endless horizon. Before you drift off, do me a small favor and tap the like button and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment telling me where you are listening from and what time it is for you. The air inside the tent is sharp, metallic, bitter. Even after a night of steady fire, breath still freezes in the air, frosting the poles, clinging to the hide stretched across the walls. Quilts and reindeer skins weigh heavy across the bodies of the family, trapping just enough warmth to keep them from stiffening in their sleep. But morning always demands movement. The mistress of the tent rises first, her breath a cloud, her hands trembling as they reach for wood stacked near the stove. She pushes open the iron door, a hiss of cold rushing in, and slides another log into the embers. Sparks flare, flames lick upward, the belly of the stove glows red. At once the sound changes, a low roar, a steady crackle, the sound of life being fed for another day. The family stirs one by one. Children groan softly, their faces half hidden beneath scarves even as they sleep. Fathers and older sons sit heavier, their shoulders bent, their hands fumbling with mittens. They know the herd waits outside, scattered across the snow, bells silent in the distance. Work does not wait for warmth, and neither can they, but for a moment all of them linger near the stove, their hands stretched toward the glow, their eyes squinting against smoke that curls upward into the dim light. Tea is prepared quickly, black and bitter, poured from a kettle that never cools completely. A few precious lumps of sugar are dropped in if they can be spared, or a splash of frozen milk chipped from a pail. Bread baked flat the night before is warmed near the fire, spread with fat scraped from the last slaughter, dense and heavy in the stomach. Sometimes a strip of frozen fish is carved with a sharp knife, eaten raw, crunching between teeth, the taste sharp and clean. Sometimes a scrap of meat is boiled into broth, its steam curling upward, warming faces pressed close to the bowl. Breakfast here is never a feast. It is fuel, it is fire for the body, as necessary as logs for the stove. The children eat quickly, their voices rising in chatter, even as frost clings to their hair. They laugh at each other's stiff scarves, at mittens that freeze into shapes overnight, at the way their breath curls upward in thick clouds. Their laughter is bright, cutting through the heaviness of the morning, reminding everyone that joy can survive even in air this sharp. Parents smile faintly, though their eyes are already elsewhere, already measuring the work ahead, sleds to load, wood to chop, reindeer to gather, snow to clear, hides to sew. Dressing begins next. A ritual as serious as prayer, socks layered over socks, felt boots pulled stiffly onto feet, hides wrapped around legs, trousers tied with cords, shirts, tunics, vests, coats, each one heavier than the last, each one stitched from reindeer hide, each one carrying the warmth of an animal that once walked this same tundra. Scarves are wrapped again and again around mouths, pulled high to cover cheeks, tied tight to block the air. Mittens are tugged on, clumsy but sure, fingers huddled together for warmth. Hats are pulled low, hoods drawn forward, fur pressed against brows. Children are checked by their parents, scarves tugged higher, mittens tied with cords, so they cannot be lost. No gap is left, no skin is exposed. At 60 below, a bare patch of cheek is frostbitten in minutes. A careless seam is the beginning of rot. At last, the flap of the tent is pushed open, and the tundra pours in. The air is a blade, slicing through layers, pressing against lungs. Breath bursts outward, freezing instantly, falling like smoke to the ground. Eyelashes stiffen into white combs, beards crust in seconds, scarves harden into masks. The first step outside is always a shock, no matter how many mornings have passed. The second is no easier. The third is only acceptance. The herd is already moving faintly, dark shapes against the endless white. Their breath steams, their hooves scrape against snow as they paw for moss buried deep beneath ice. Their bells jingle softly, carried across the silence like fragile chimes. The men walk toward them, their boots squeaking with every step, their shadows long in the pale light. Dogs dart ahead, their bodies wiry, their fur crusted with frost, their barks sharp in the frozen air. The day has begun. Fire burns inside the tent. Smoke twists into the sky. Children's laughter drifts faintly across the snow, and the endless rhythm of survival stirs once more. Morning in the tundra is not gentle, it is not warm, it is not soft. It is a test, and every day that begins with fire, with food, with laughter, with reindeer still waiting in the snow, is another day the nomads have endured what most could not imagine. Here, at 60 below, morning is not a beginning, it is a victory. The chum rises from the white tundra like a dark pyramid, its outline sharp against the endless snow. From a distance it looks small, almost fragile. A cluster of poles and stretched hides in a land so vast it swallows everything. Yet for the family who lives inside, it is fortress, womb and world all at once. To build a chum is to carry one's house on one's back, to dismantle it and raise it again with every migration, to trust that poles, rope and reindeer skins can hold back an air that gnaws through stone. The frame is a forest tamed and stripped. Long, slender poles, usually birch or larch, are lashed together at their peaks, spread wide at the base, and arranged in a circle. Into this skeleton, the reindeer hides are stretched, thick felt pressed close, layers overlapped so that wind has no seam to enter. Each hide carries the warmth of the animal that gave it. Each stitch is done by hand, each seam checked and tightened, for even a thumb-sized gap could mean drafts creeping in, frost biting cheeks, embers dying in the stove. Step inside, and you are met with smoke first. It curls in slow ribbons toward the opening at the peak, staining poles black, clinging to every hide, seeping into hair and clothes until the whole family smells of it. The smoke is harsh, sharp in the throat, yet comforting because it means fire. Without smoke there is no heat, no water, no food. The chum breathes smoke the way lungs breathe air, and its people breathe it too. The stove sits in the center, blackened and iron, its pipe piercing through the hides. Around it spreads the life of the family, quilts and furs laid thick on the ground, bedding piled along the edges, boots set close to thaw, mittens steaming gently as they dry. Tools hang from poles, knives and ropes, harnesses and sacks. Every object has its place. Every place has its meaning. The chum is not cluttered, but dense, filled with the press of necessity. The family gathers around the stove as if around a beating heart. Children sit cross-legged on hides, their cheeks glowing in the firelight, their fingers busy with scraps of wood they carve into toys, or bits of hide they practice stitching. Women sit with needles, sinew thread pulled through fur panels, patching boots, mending mittens, sewing coats. Men return from the herd and sit heavily, steam rising from their clothes, their hands trembling as they warm them near the stove. The space is small, crowded, smoky, but it holds them all, pressed together by both love and survival. Every sound inside is magnified. The hiss of the kettle boiling water, the soft crackle of wood collapsing into embers, the chatter of children trading stories in Saka or Nenet's tongue, the low murmur of parents making plans for the next migration, for the next slaughter, for the next lesson taught to their children. Sometimes there is laughter, bright and sudden, ringing against hides like bells. Sometimes silence hangs heavy, broken only by the stove's sigh. Frost creeps even here. It clings to the poles, paints lace across the roof, drips slowly when the stove roars too hot. In the mornings quilts are rimmed with ice where breath froze overnight. Scarves stiffen as they dry. Boots stand rigid until thawed. Even in the heart of warmth, the cold waits, reminding all inside that this is only temporary shelter, that beyond the hides and smoke lies a land that kills without mercy. And yet, the chum is more than survival. It is tradition. The way poles are raised, the way hides are stretched, the way the stove is placed, it all carries memory, the knowledge of ancestors who did the same centuries ago. To step inside is to step into history, into a line unbroken by modern houses, by city apartments, by cement walls. For the nomad, the chum is not poor or primitive. It is right. It is home because it can move, because it can breathe, because it belongs to the land just as they do. At night, the family lies pressed together beneath furs, the stove glowing red, its warmth fading slowly as wood is consumed. The smoke hole above reveals a slice of sky, stars glittering sharp and cold. Outside, reindeer shift, dogs bark at shadows, the wind moans across the endless white. Inside, children dream, parents stir, the stove sighs, frost creeps, and still the chum holds, fragile yet fierce, a bubble of warmth in a land of ice. The dwelling where the family lives is not made of stone. It does not stand forever. It is dismantled, carried, rebuilt, but perhaps that is why it endures, why it has lasted where cities collapse, why it still rises today in the far north of Russia, because it bends to the tundra instead of breaking, because it moves with it instead of against it, because its poles and hides carry not only warmth, but the soul of a people who have never left the snow. The reindeer move like shadows across the tundra, their breath rising in great clouds that drift and freeze in the air, their hooves crunching through layers of snow as they paw for lichen buried deep beneath the ice. Their antlers are crowned in frost, their hides dusted white, and their bodies pressed together against the wind, a herd that is less a collection of animals than a single living mass. For the nomads of the far north, this is not merely livestock, this is the axis on which their entire life turns. Without the reindeer, there is no survival. Every step, every meal, every shelter, every stitch of clothing depends on them. They are food, their meat boiled into stews, eaten raw in thin frozen curls called strogana, or roasted until fat drips and hisses in fire. They are warmth, their hides sewn into boots and coats, their sinew threaded into stitches stronger than cord, their fat burned as fuel, their bones carved into tools. They are transport, harnessed to sleds that glide across snow where no machine can endure. Bells jingling faintly as they carry families, supplies, entire dwellings from one camp to the next. They are life itself, not in part but in whole, as essential as fire, as necessary as air. In the morning, Herders step out of the chum and scan the horizon, their eyes narrowed against the bite of wind, their scarves stiff with frost. They count the herd, each animal known, each calf watched with care. If one is missing, tracks are followed, bells listened for in the silence. Wolves prowl these lands, silent, lean, merciless. A reindeer that wanders too far risks being taken, its bones scattered across the snow, its absence a blow felt not just in the stomach, but in the soul of the family. Catching them is an art in itself. Herders carry lassos of rawhide, coiled neatly in their mittens, their loops practiced 1,000 times. When a reindeer strays, the rope flies, whistling through the air before snapping tight around antlers. The animal bucks, steam bursting from its nostrils, hooves kicking against the snow. The herder leans back, digging boots deep, holding fast, his breath freezing in bursts, as he wrestles it under control. It is dangerous work. Antlers slash hooves strike, but it is the rhythm of life, learned young, taught father to son, mother to daughter. Children practice with smaller ropes, their laughter ringing as they miss again and again, until at last they catch, until at last the skill is theirs. Reindeer are not only caught for food or harness, but for healing too. The herd is inspected daily, wounds treated with soot pressed into cuts, fat rubbed into frostbitten patches, herbs boiled in summer stored for poultices in winter. Calves are watched with hawk eyes, their spindly legs vulnerable, their bodies fragile in the bitter air. Mothers nuzzle them, steaming breath, wrapping them in warmth, while herders guard them against both wolves and frost. To lose a calf is to lose the future, and every one that survives is a promise. Harnessing begins with the strongest males, their broad chests strapped with leather and rope, sleds tied behind them. Their breath erupts in plumes as they strain, hooves biting into snow, pulling sleds piled high with hides, tools, food, even the poles of the chum. The sound of sled runners slicing across snow is part of the tundra's song, a whispering glide that carries families across distances no road could bridge. For hours, sometimes days, they travel this way, wrapped in furs, faces stiff with frost, bells chiming faintly with each step of the herd. But beyond survival, beyond meat and hides and transport, the reindeer carry something deeper. They are spirit, they are kin. The nomads sing to them, low songs murmured through scarves, voices carried on the wind. They tell stories of ancestors who followed the herds across endless centuries, of shamans who spoke with them in dreams, of spirits who guarded them as guardians of the land. When a reindeer is slaughtered, words are whispered, offerings are made, bones are treated with respect. To waste even a scrap is unthinkable. To kill without need is forbidden. Children grow up with reindeer as their first teachers. They learn to walk alongside them, to tie their harnesses, to ride on their sleds, to whisper songs into their ears. They are raised not only by parents, but by the herd itself, by the rhythms of feeding, herding, migrating. They see in them not dumb animals but companions, partners in survival. They grow to understand, instinctively, that their own beating hearts are tied to the herds that breathe in clouds against the white horizon. When night falls, the reindeer gather close, their bodies a wall of warmth against the dark. Their bells jingle softly as they shift, their breath steaming, their hooves scraping faintly against the frozen crust of snow. Dogs patrol around them, barking at shadows, snapping at the hint of wolves. Herders rise in turns, scanning the herd with tired eyes, counting, listening, murmuring songs that reassure both themselves and the animals. In the coldest place on earth, reindeer are more than survival. They are meaning, they are the axis around which life turns, the one certainty in a land where everything else is ice, silence, and endless white. To ask what a reindeer means to a nomad is to ask what blood means to the body, what breath means to the lungs. They are not a resource. They are existence itself. In the dim light of the chum, with smoke curling upward and the stove glowing red, the sound that fills the air most often is not silence, not the crackle of logs, not the low murmur of adults speaking in Saka or Nanette's tongue. It is the voices of children. In many families here in the tundra, there are 6, 8, sometimes 10 children, all born into the snow, all raised with the rhythm of reindeer hooves and the sigh of the stove. Their presence transforms the tent from a place of mere survival into something vibrant, crowded, alive with laughter, quarrels, questions and lessons woven from necessity. From the moment they can walk, children are part of the work. A toddler wrapped in reindeer hide toddles after his mother, dragging a small stick through the snow, mimicking the way she stirs the fire. A boy scarcely older than 5 clutches a miniature lasso, practicing his throws on posts and dogs, his voice shrieking with delight when the rope catches. A girl, her cheeks raw with cold, sits cross-legged near her grandmother, tiny fingers clumsy but eager as she learns to push a bone needle through scraps of hide. Childhood here is not sheltered, not distant from responsibility. It is apprenticeship. Every game carries a lesson. Every chore is a rehearsal for survival. The parents teach by showing, by including fathers lift children onto sleds, pressing small hands against reins, guiding their movements until they learn the rhythm of pulling reindeer into circles. Mothers sit with daughters, showing them how to soften hides with smoke, how to stitch mittens so tight no wind can sneak through. The children's questions are answered not with explanations, but with demonstrations, because the tundra allows no theory, only practice. If a child forgets to tie a mitten with its cord, the frost will remind them. If they fail to tuck a scarf high enough, the white patches blooming on their cheeks will teach them faster than words. And yet for all this harshness, there is love. The chum, crowded though it may be, is filled with laughter, with the shrieks of children tumbling in quilts, with songs sung by mothers to soothe infants swaddled in panitsa coats. Fathers crouch down to wrestle playfully with sons, their mittens clumsy, but their laughter booming. Grandmothers cradle babies close to the stove, their wrinkled faces soft in the glow. Children are not treated as burdens. They are the future of the herd, the future of the family, the proof that the life will continue. But here lies the paradox. Though children are raised in the tundra, many do not stay. By law they are sent away to boarding schools, sometimes hundreds of kilometers from their families. Helicopters arrive, roaring across the endless white, landing like giant birds on the snow. Mothers weep quietly as their children climb aboard, wrapped in scarves, their small faces pressed against frosted windows. Fathers stand stiff, their jaws clenched, their hands gripping ropes too tightly. The herd shifts uneasily at the noise. Dogs bark furiously, and then the machine lifts, carrying away the voices that once filled the chum. The children are gone for months, sometimes for years, returning only in summer. They learn Russian, mathematics, books filled with worlds their parents have never seen. They learn to read and write, things that some of their grandparents never could. When they return, their tongues stumble between languages, their clothes smell of towns and soap, their eyes have glimpsed a life beyond the snow. Some return eagerly, slipping back into the rhythm of herding and sowing. Others grow restless, glancing toward horizons that lead away from the tundra. For the parents, this is both pride and sorrow. They want their children to have choices, to live easier lives if they choose, to hold a future not bound only to frost and herds. And yet, Each departure is a cut, each absence a hollow place in the chum, each reunion a reminder that the life may not hold forever. Inside the tent, the younger ones still remain. Their laughter fills the space. Their mittens dangle from cords. Their scarves freeze stiff after a morning outside. They fall asleep curled in quilts, their small bodies pressed close to siblings, their breath rising in clouds that frost the hides above. And as parents watch them, their hearts hold two truths at once: joy at their presence, and fear at the knowledge that one day the helicopter will come for them too. A family with 10 children in the tundra is not rare, and each child is both a treasure and a teacher. They are proof that life continues, even against ice, even against silence, even against despair, and they are also reminders that survival here is never guaranteed, not for reindeer, not for parents, not even for the children who laugh so freely in the smoke-filled glow of the chum. The chum does not stand forever. It is a house built to move, a shelter as restless as the land itself. When the reindeer grow restless, when the snow is scraped bare of lichen, when the herd paws at the ground and finds nothing, the family knows it is time. Migration is not a choice. It is a command written in the hooves of the animals, in the hunger of their bellies. And so the day comes when the home itself must be taken apart, loaded onto sleds, and carried across the tundra to rise again in a new place. The morning begins early. Smoke curls from the stove one last time. Kettles boil. Bread is baked flat on the pan. Children are fed until their cheeks glow with warmth. Then the dismantling begins. Poles are pulled from the roof, their blackened tips revealed where smoke has stained them through years of use. Hides are stripped from the frame, heavy, stiff, creaking as they are folded into rolls. Quilts and furs are gathered, tools bundled, ropes coiled. Each object is precious, each one necessary. Nothing can be left behind. Nothing can be wasted. The sleds stand waiting in the snow, their runners already crusted with frost, their harnesses draped across the ground. Reindeer are caught with lassos, their antlers tugged, their heads lowered as ropes are tightened across their chests. They snort clouds into the air, stamping hooves, bells jingling faintly as they are pulled into teams. Dogs bark wildly, circling, their breath bursting in the air, their paws kicking up powder. Children chase them, shrieking with laughter, their cheeks stiff with ice. The sleds are loaded slowly, carefully. Poles are stacked in long bundles, hides rolled tight and lashed with ropes, tools tucked in, pots and kettles tied, furs and quilts are packed on top, layered thick, protecting children who will ride curled against their mothers during the long journey. The stove itself is carried, black and heavy, its pipe bundled separately, its belly cleaned of ash. To leave it would be to leave life behind. Even the smallest object, needles, rope, scraps of hide, is packed. Each item has its role. Each role is survival. At last the chum stands no more. The circle of poles is gone. The hides folded, the stove loaded. Only a black patch of trampled snow remains, steaming faintly where the fire once burned. Frost creeps back into it almost instantly, reclaiming it, erasing the warmth as though it never existed. Already the land forgets. Already the tundra closes in. The migration begins. Reindeer strain against their harnesses, sleds creak, runners hiss across the snow. Families ride bundled in furs, faces hidden, eyes narrowed against the wind. Men walk beside the sleds, boots squeaking, ropes tight in their mittens. Dogs dart ahead, their barks sharp, their bodies flashing like streaks of shadow across the white. The horizon stretches endless, featureless, a canvas of snow and sky. The herd moves slowly, steadily, a river of antlers and breath flowing through the tundra. The wind rises, sharp and merciless. Snow whirls into the air, stinging cheeks, freezing into scarves until they harden like boards. Eyes water, lashes freeze, faces stiffen. Children burrow deeper into quilts, their breath frosting the fur around them, their small voices muffled. Mothers hold them tight, whispering songs, rocking them even as sleds bump and jolt across hidden ridges. Fathers lean into the wind, their shoulders hunched, their eyes fixed on the horizon. Each step is a struggle, each breath a cloud, each moment a battle against the land. Hours pass. The sun arcs weakly across the sky, then sinks again into twilight. The herd still moves, sleds still groan, ropes still strain. The land stretches unbroken, white upon white, silence pierced only by the jingle of bells and the squeak of boots. Exhaustion weighs heavy, but there can be no pause. To stop is to freeze, to falter is to fail. Migration is relentless. At last a new place is chosen, a flat stretch of snow, sheltered faintly by low rises, close to lichen-rich ground. The sleds stop, reindeer stamp and snort, dogs circle, barking. The family climbs down, their limbs stiff, their faces white with frost. The work of building begins at once. Poles are unlashed, raised into the circle, tied at their peaks. Hides are stretched, pulled, lashed tight. The stove is set in place, its pipe piercing the roof. Fire is lit, smoke curls upward, warmth sighs into the air. Slowly the chum rises again, a dark pyramid against the white, a fortress of hide and pole, ready to hold another night of life. Inside, children tumble onto quilts, laughter bubbling, their cheeks raw but their eyes bright. Mothers set kettles on the stove, fathers loosen ropes, dogs curl near the walls, reindeer paw at the snow for moss. The migration is finished for now. The home stands again, the fire breathes again, the family endures again. And so it has been for centuries. Tear down, load, travel, rebuild. The chum rises and falls like breath, following the herd across the endless white, a house that never stays, a family that never roots, a life that moves always forward, never still. The chum smokes steadily in its new place, the stove glowing red at the heart of it. But the moment it is raised and the fire is breathing again, the family has no luxury of rest. In the tundra, the work begins as soon as one task ends, and it never truly stops. Every hour is filled with the labor of survival, every muscle bent to chores that weigh as heavily as the frost pressing against the felt walls. The men shoulder axes and step into the forest, their boots squeaking against the snow, their mittens clumsy on the handles. Frozen trunks loom ahead, bark armoured in frost, branches snapping brittle underfoot. Each swing of the axe rings like steel on stone, the wood so hard it shatters in shards, splinters flashing like glass in the weak light. The men's breaths burst from their mouths, freezing instantly in their beards, coating their lashes white. Sweat pricks beneath their coats. Dangerous in air this sharp, but still they swing, because without wood the stove will die. And with it the family. Horses stand steaming, their manes stiff with ice, waiting to drag sleds heavy with logs back to camp. The rhythm is endless. Swing, crack, haul, stack, burn. Women bend over laundry near the stove, basins filled with hot water already cooling even as steam rises. Soap, brittle as stone, is softened in the fire, rubbed into cloth stiff with smoke and grease. Their hands plunge in, red from the heat, trembling with effort, scrubbing until their knuckles ache. Shirts, trousers, scarves, mittens, all are beaten, wrung, hung outside to freeze stiff, then thawed again by fire. The tent fills with steam, with smoke, with the sharp scent of lye and wool. Their shoulders ache, their backs bend, but they do not stop. A hole in a mitten, a weak seam in a boot, could mean frostbite. Laundry here is not cleanliness, it is armor. Children carry water, hauling buckets filled with chunks of ice hacked from rivers, stumbling through drifts that swallow their boots. Their cheeks glow red, their scarves crust with frost, their mittens stiff. They laugh, they race each other, but their labor matters. Without their ice, there is no tea, no broth, no washing. They drag wood too, splinters in their mittens, shoulders bowed under loads too heavy for their size. They tumble, they shriek, they rise again, learning early that every task is survival disguised as play. Inside the chum, the stove is never idle. Pots bubble with broth made from reindeer bones, fat shimmering on the surface. Blood sausage boils, hissing, its scent sharp and metallic, filling the smoky air. Frozen fish is carved into thin curls, eaten raw, crunching like ice between teeth. Bread is baked flat, blackened against iron, dipped into stew until it softens. Food here is heavy, greasy, filling, designed not for taste but for fuel. Every bite is fat and strength pressed into the body, every spoonful a shield against the air waiting outside. The women sew as the pot bubbles, needles of bone flashing in firelight, sinew thread pulled through hides. Boots are patched, mittens reinforced, coats stitched tight. Children watch, learning the rhythm of hand and needle, practicing on scraps, their stitches crooked but determined. A grandmother mutters softly as she works, correcting their clumsy fingers, passing down knowledge with every motion. Clothing here is not luxury. It is life wrapped around skin, life sewn tight, life passed from mother to daughter, from grandmother to child. Even the dogs have their labor. They circle the herd, barking at shadows, chasing wolves that prowl just beyond sight. They curl at the edge of the chum when exhausted, their fur stiff with frost, their eyes glowing faintly in the dark. Their bodies are lean, their movements tireless. Without them the herd would scatter. The wolves would feast. By night the family is heavy with exhaustion. Shoulders ache, hands tremble, eyes droop. Yet still someone must rise to feed the stove. Still someone must check the reindeer. Still someone must walk into the black to be sure no wolves have crept too close. Rest is never whole here. It comes in fragments, stolen between tasks, measured in minutes rather than hours. And yet there is no complaint. This rhythm has been lived for centuries, inherited with the same inevitability as breath. Hardship here is not spoken of as suffering, but as life. To chop wood until your arms burn, to scrub clothes until your knuckles crack, to sew until your eyes blur, these are not punishments. They are the heartbeat of existence. Without them there is no chum, no herd, no family, no dawn. In the tundra hardship is not an exception. It is the constant ground beneath every step, the silent weight in every breath, the endless labor written into every life. And somehow within that weight, people endure. The tundra does not measure time the way the city does. There are no calendars hung on walls, no clocks ticking in kitchens, no hospitals with waiting rooms and sterile lights to track the passing of years. Here, life is counted in migrations, in the turning of snow to swamp and swamp back to snow, in the growth of reindeer calves into the broad-chested animals that will pull sleds, in the births of children inside smoky chums, and their departures years later in helicopters bound for faraway schools. And yet under this rhythm the years weigh heavily, pressing harder than the wind. A man of 50 here is already old. His shoulders are bent not only from years of carrying poles and hides, but from the invisible weight of frost that has gnawed at his lungs, of endless marches through storms, of hunger that has carved hollows in his body. His hands are swollen with old frostbite, fingers stiff, tips numb, yet he still grips the reins of his sled, still swings his axe in the frozen forest. His beard is white, not only from age but from steam that froze and stayed, and the younger men look at him with a mix of respect and fear. Respect, because he has survived decades in a land that erases the weak. Fear, because they see in his bent frame the mirror of their own futures. Women age fast too. Their backs ache from bending over basins of steaming water. Their fingers crack from sewing hides until midnight. Their lungs wheeze from years of smoke pressed into every breath inside the chum. A grandmother of 60 is rare, her face lined deep, her eyes watery from smoke, her voice soft but firm as she teaches her granddaughters to stitch boots. She smiles often, but behind it is a fatigue carved so deep it can never leave her. Yet when she lifts a hide, her arms still move with purpose, because here old age is not retreat, it is guidance, the last gift before the body breaks. There are no doctors waiting at the edge of the tundra. There are no clinics hidden among the reindeer moss. Illness is met with tea, with herbs gathered in short summers, with fat pressed into sores, with prayers murmured against the howling wind. A child's cough may last for weeks, each day heavy with worry. A cut may fester, a tooth may rot, a fever may take hold. Some heal, some do not. Death here is not an event, but a companion, walking just behind the family, silent, waiting for its chance. Families know this and speak of it without fear. Children learn young that people do not grow old here the way they do elsewhere. Life expectancy is not 70 or 80, it is 40, 50, if fortune is kind. They watch their father's hair whiten early, their mother's hands stiffen while still sewing, their grandparents vanish quietly in the night. Funerals are simple, a body wrapped, carried, laid into ground softened with fire, covered again in snow that closes like a lid. The herd gathers nearby, their breath rising in clouds, their bells ringing faintly. The family whispers thanks to the earth, then returns to the work because the cold waits for no morning. There are tragedies that cut deeper still. Families who lose all their reindeer, whether to storms, to wolves, to ice that seals lichen beneath an impenetrable crust, face not only hunger but ruin. Without reindeer, there is no chum to build, no sled to load, no food to eat. They remain in one place, trapped, unable to migrate, living in tents that sag and rot. Their children are carried away by helicopter to schools they may never return from, their parents left to stare at empty snow, hands idle, hearts hollow. These families are spoken of in hushed tones, as warnings, as echoes of fragility. And yet, for all this, there is resilience. Old men still sing songs by the fire, their voices low and cracked but steady. Old women still braid their granddaughters' hair, still guide needles through hides, still scold children for forgetting to tie their mittens. They laugh at their aches, they smile at their hunger, they carry their fatigue with dignity. They know that life here is not long, but it is full, rich with meaning, tied to the land in ways outsiders cannot imagine. When you ask a nomad about life expectancy, they shrug. They do not count years in numbers, but in migrations, in children born, in herds raised, in winters endured. They know they may not live as long as those in towns, but they also know that their lives are carved into the tundra itself, into the smoke of their stoves, into the tracks of their sleds across the snow. Here a short life can still be vast if it is lived with strength, with laughter, with reindeer at one's side. And so the people of the tundra age quickly bend under years faster than most, fall into graves dug with fire and axes, but they leave behind songs, traditions, herds, children who remember their voices. In the coldest lands of the earth, that is the true measure of life, not its length, but its endurance. Children in the tundra are born into smoke and frost. Their first cries echo against the hides of the chum, their small bodies swaddled in panitsa coats of reindeer fur, their breath already fogging in the air, as if the tundra itself is testing their lungs. From the very beginning, they are folded into the rhythm of nomadic life. They sleep curled against their mothers, rocked by the creak of sleds. They take their first steps on snow packed hard by hooves. They grow up hearing the bells of reindeer before they ever hear the sounds of machines. Childhood here is not sheltered. It is survival written in play. A toddler drags a stick through the snow, imitating his father's lasso. A girl no older than 5 stitches scraps of hide beside her grandmother. Her small fingers clumsy but eager, boys chase dogs through drifts, their laughter bursting in clouds of breath, their cheeks burning with cold. Girls practice tying knots, wrapping scarves, patching mittens, their voices rising in songs their mothers hum as they sew. Each game is a lesson, each task disguised as play. By the time they are 10, children can harness reindeer, mend a boot, chop kindling, and boil tea. By the time they are 15, they can shoulder adult tasks. Childhood is short, but it is not loveless. Parents adore their children, their scolding softened with pride, their eyes following every step with quiet worry. In the chum, laughter often drowns out the roar of the stove. But then, one day, the helicopter comes. Its blades roar across the white horizon, a thunder alien to this silent land. It lands heavily in the snow, sending powder whipping into the air, startling reindeer, making dogs bark wildly. The children, clutching small bags, are bundled into thick coats and scarves. Mothers fuss, tightening mittens, kissing cheeks, pressing charms into small hands. Fathers stand stiff, jaws set, eyes fixed on the ground. The children climb into the machine, their faces pressed against frosted windows, their eyes wide with both fear and wonder. The helicopter lifts, carrying them away to schools hundreds of kilometers from the tundra. Their voices fade into the distance, and the chum is left quieter, emptier. For months, sometimes years, children live far from their families. They study in boarding schools built in towns where snow still falls, but roads run and lights never go out. They learn Russian, mathematics, geography, the names of cities they have never seen. They eat food from plates instead of bowls over stoves. They sleep in beds lined in rows instead of beneath quilts, pressed close to siblings. They forget sometimes the rhythm of reindeer bells, the smell of smoke, the way mittens stiffen on lines. They learn to read and write, things their grandparents never knew, and they return in summers with eyes that have glimpsed other worlds. Some come back eager, stepping into the chum as if they had never left, throwing lassos, stitching hides, laughing with younger siblings. Others come back restless, their eyes glancing toward the horizon, their hearts caught between 2 worlds. They dream of apartments, of streets, of choices not bound to herds and snow. For parents, this is pride and sorrow woven together. Pride that their children will have choices they never had. Sorrow that those choices may lead them away forever. Not all children were given this path. In the chaos after the collapse of the Soviet Union, many nomadic families were left adrift. Schools closed, helicopters stopped coming, Records were lost. Entire families were cut off from education. A generation grew up without reading or writing, their tongues fluent only in the language of snow, herds, and fire. They knew how to build a chum, how to track reindeer, how to survive storms, but not how to read a letter or sign their name. They are adults now, their lives etched deep with skill and strength, but also marked by a gap, a silence in their knowledge that the modern world calls illiteracy. Still, within the chum, children are raised with tenderness. They are held close in quilts, sung to by their mothers, rocked to sleep by the hum of the stove. Fathers teach them to tie ropes. Mothers teach them to sew boots. Grandparents teach them songs and stories of ancestors who crossed the tundra with herds so vast they darkened the horizon. Children laugh as they tumble in snow, shriek as they slide on sled runners, curl into one another for warmth at night. They are loved fiercely, raised hard, and taught early. The tundra does not give easy childhoods. It takes and it tests. It steals children away in helicopters, and sometimes in storms. But it also gives them freedom under skies without fences, strength forged in hardship, and the love of families that measure life not in wealth or choice, but in survival together. And so, children of the tundra grow with one foot in the past and one in the future, torn between herds and schools, between chums and towns, between snow and asphalt. Some return, some do not, but all carry the tundra in their lungs, in their hands, in their memories. Even when they leave, even when they cannot read the old songs or sew the old stitches, the rhythm of reindeer bells and the glow of the stove remain inside them, echoing quietly for the rest of their lives. Love in the tundra is not written in candlelit rooms or whispered in city streets. It is lived in the smoke of the chum, in the creak of sleds, in the laughter that rises even when frost clings to eyelashes. Here at 60 Below, marriage is not only about desire, it is about survival, tradition, and the continuation of a life bound to reindeer and snow. For centuries, parents chose the path their children would walk, not because they did not care for love, but because love was a fragile thing in a land that demanded strength above all. A father might sit with another family by the fire, voices low, smoke curling between them. The talk is not about romance, but about herds. How many reindeer do they keep? How strong is their son? Can their daughter sew hides tight enough that wind will not slip through? Marriages are alliances as much as unions, ties between families that ensure both will endure the winters ahead. When a match is agreed, children may be told only when the sleds arrive, when the feast begins, when their lives shift like the snow beneath them. For daughters, the lesson is early. They are taught to sew, to cook, to mend, to keep the stove alive when the wind moans against the walls. Their mothers watch carefully, correcting stitches, scolding mistakes, reminding them that these skills are not optional. They are proof that a girl is ready for marriage, that she can build a home from poles and hides, that she can keep her family alive in the blackest nights. For sons, the training is with reins and ropes, lassos and knives. They learn to catch reindeer, to split wood, to hunt, to guard the herd in storms. These too are their qualifications, their dowry made of sweat and calluses rather than gold. Weddings are not lavish. They are feasts by fire, with steaming pots of reindeer meat, bread baked flat on pans, songs rising into smoky air. Families gather, voices weaving together in old melodies, children tumbling through snow outside, dogs barking at shadows. The bride may wear her finest panitsa coat, stitched with bright patterns, her cheeks glowing not from paint, but from frost. The groom may step forward with reindeer harnessed to a sled, proof of his strength, his future, his promise. The vows are not words but acts, sharing food, tying ropes together, stepping into the same sled to begin their life as one. And yet, within this structure, love still grows. Two people bound by arrangement still share laughter by the stove, still whisper softly to one another beneath quilts, still raise children together with tenderness. The tundra does not smother love. It shapes it. It makes it quieter, steadier, less about longing and more about endurance. Couples do not measure affection in gifts or flowers, but in mittens sewn tighter, in broth served hotter, in shoulders leaned against one another in storms. Still, change has come. In towns beyond the tundra, in schools where children are sent, ideas of freedom trickle in. Some sons refuse matches their parents propose. Some daughters dream of choosing their own path. Helicopters carry away not only children, but the notion that choice is possible. And so tension grows between the way things were and the way things may become. Some families hold firm, still arranging matches, still trusting the old ways. Others relent, allowing their children to seek partners on their own. Do nomads regret this life? When asked, parents often smile, their faces lined deep, their eyes tired but steady. They speak of hardship without complaint, of hunger without bitterness. Regret is not a word they use. Life is what it is, what it always has been. Herds, snow, smoke, work, family. Choice is a concept they discuss with curiosity, sometimes with envy, but rarely with longing. For them, choice is the privilege of those who live where the land does not kill so quickly. In the tundra, the only choice is survival, and in that there is dignity. And so, love, marriage, and choice weave together strangely here. Parents arrange, children sometimes accept, sometimes rebel, but always carry the weight of tradition. Couples learn to love in silence and smoke, to measure affection in survival, and when outsiders ask if they regret it, the answer is often a shrug, a half smile, a wordless glance at the herd pouring snow outside. For them, life is not about choice, it is about endurance, and within endurance, love finds its place, quiet but unbroken. The tundra stretches endless, a sea of white broken only by the dark line of a herd moving across the horizon. The chum smokes faintly, a black pyramid against the snow, its pipe breathing warmth into an air that will never soften. Dogs curl tight near sleds, reindeer stamp and snort. Children's laughter echoes briefly before the wind swallows it. This is the world of the nomad, a life carved into silence and frost, a rhythm repeated for centuries. And still the question lingers, why remain here in a land that punishes every mistake, that shortens every life, that tests every breath? The answer lies not in comfort, nor in ambition, but in philosophy, the philosophy of survival. For the nomads of the far north, life is not measured in luxuries, but in endurance. Each day the chum stands, each night the stove burns, each migration completed, each child raised to another year is victory. To outsiders it seems unthinkable, a hardship chosen. To the nomads, it is the only way, the path their ancestors walked, the path the reindeer still demand. The stove is more than iron and wood, it is the heart of existence, glowing red at the center of the tent, pulling the family together in its orbit. Around it they eat, they laugh, they sew, they argue, they tell stories. Around it children learn, lovers whisper, elders murmur songs that carry centuries. When the stove breathes, life continues. When it dies, everything ends. It is more than heat. It is the pulse of survival, as sacred as blood. The reindeer, too, are more than animals. They are existence itself. Every piece of a reindeer is used, hide into boots, sinew into thread, bone into tools, meat into meals, fat into light. To lose reindeer is to lose not only wealth, but the future. Each calf born is a promise. Each herd gathered a renewal. Even when wolves strike, even when herds thin in icy winters, the nomads endure because the reindeer endure. Their bond is not ownership, but partnership, a pact sealed across generations. Children, though often carried away to distant schools, remain the hope of the tundra. They are taught not only letters in towns, but traditions at home, how to tie scarves, how to lasso reindeer, how to sew a boot so no frost creeps in. Parents dream not of wealth for their children, but of continuity, of knowing that even if one son leaves, another will stay, another will keep the herd, another will raise the chum. In this way, survival is never only individual, it is collective, carried in bloodlines, in stories, in skills passed hand to hand. And then there is choice, the word that outsiders repeat, the word the modern world defines itself by: choice of jobs, of cities, of homes, of partners, of futures. For the nomad, choice is narrower, stripped to its bones, to endure or not to endure, to migrate or to starve, to stitch the boot or lose the foot, to rise in the night and feed the stove, or wake to frost stiffening the blankets. Choice here is less about freedom than responsibility. It is about making the only decision that allows tomorrow to come. Do they envy the choices of modern people? Some do quietly when they see their children return with books and stories of apartments, cars, warm radiators, glowing screens. Some dream of easier lives, of lungs not filled with smoke, of hands not cracked by frost. And yet, when asked directly, most shrug, their eyes drifting toward the herd outside, the smoke curling from the stove. For them, happiness is not about ease but belonging. They belong to the tundra, to the reindeer, to the rhythm of migration. Leaving would not mean freedom, it would mean losing themselves. The tundra is merciless. It shortens lives, steals warmth, demands labor without pause, but it also gives clarity. It strips life to its essentials: fire, food, family, herd. In a world elsewhere crowded with noise and endless options, the nomads live within a simplicity that is both brutal and profound. They know who they are because they cannot be anything else. They endure not out of ignorance, but out of understanding. At night, when the aurora burns green across the sky, when the chum glows faintly from within, when the herd breathes clouds into the black, the philosophy of survival reveals itself in silence. Life is not about conquering the tundra. It is about moving with it, bending with it, enduring alongside it. It is about fire in the stove, reindeer in the snow, children sleeping beneath hides, laughter rising even when the cold presses hardest. The modern world may call it hardship. The nomads call it life.